In the morning, I found out the coffee was still warm. I had driven the 40 minutes to my daughter's house the way I always did on Thursdays. Windows down, NPR on low, the kind of quiet that only comes when you've lived long enough to stop filling silence with noise. I was 67 years old, and I had learned, slowly and at some cost, that not every moment needed to be spoken into. My daughter met me at the door before I even reached the porch steps. "Mom." She smiled the way she always smiled, wide and quick. "You didn't have to ring. You know the code." I did know the code. She had given it to me 2 years ago when she and her husband bought the house, back when things still felt easy between us. Back before I noticed the small ways things had started to shift. I followed her inside, and she poured me coffee without asking, the way daughters do when they've watched their mothers long enough to know. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and dish soap. Her youngest was somewhere upstairs. I could hear the thump of small feet above our heads. We talked for a while about nothing in particular. The garden. Her sister's new job. Whether the weather would hold through the weekend. She refilled my cup before I asked, and I sat there in the warm, ordinary light of her kitchen and felt, as I sometimes did, like everything was fine. It was only when I mentioned the paperwork that her hand stopped moving. "I just need the folder back," I said. "The one I left here in October, the blue one with the deed copy and the insurance documents." She set the coffee pot down. "Right, that folder." There was something in the pause, not long, maybe 2 seconds, that I recognized the way you recognize a wrong note in a song you've known your whole life. You almost miss it. Almost. "I think it's in the study," she said. "Let me check." She left the room, and I sat there with my coffee and I listened to the sounds of the house. The child upstairs, the refrigerator hum, a car passing on the street outside, and I turned that pause over in my mind. I had left the folder at her house in October because I had been doing what I always did, trusting the people I loved with the things that mattered. I had sold the house I lived in for 31 years that fall. My husband passed 3 years before, and the house had become too large, too full of rooms I didn't use. The sale went through on a Wednesday. By Friday, I had a cashier's check for $240,000 and nowhere particular to be. My son-in-law had been the one to suggest where to keep the insurance documents while I got settled into the new apartment. "Just leave them here. We have a fireproof box," he had said, the way he always said things. Easily, casually, like it was nothing. Like he was doing me a favor. I had thought he was. My daughter came back into the kitchen. She was moving differently than when she left, a little too deliberately, her shoulders carrying something. "I can't find it right now," she said. "I'll look more carefully later. Maybe it got mixed in with some of our stuff during the move." "You moved 8 months ago," I said. "I know. Things are still a little—" She smiled again, but this time the smile had to work for it. "I'll find it. I promise." I drove home with the radio off. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen, and I wrote down everything I could remember about what was in that folder. The deed copy. A letter from my insurance company. A copy of the trust document my attorney had drawn up 2 years prior. My Medicare supplemental information. The original paperwork from my late husband's life insurance policy. The one I had already cashed. But the documents were sentimental in a way I couldn't explain to someone who hadn't lost a husband. And the account number page. The single sheet of paper my financial advisor had printed out when I opened the new investment account. The one that listed my name and the routing number and the balance as of that October. I stared at what I had written. I told myself I was being foolish. I told myself that for 3 days. On the 4th day, I called my bank. The woman on the phone was patient and unhurried, and I appreciated that more than I could say. I gave her my information. She confirmed my identity. I asked her to read me the recent activity on my investment account. She did. There was a withdrawal I did not recognize. $11,000 transferred on a Tuesday in November to an external account, and then another one 8 weeks later. $14,000. I asked her to read those back to me. She did. The dates, the amounts, the last four digits of the account the money had gone to. I did not recognize that account. I thanked her very calmly and hung up the phone. I sat without moving for a long time. The apartment was very quiet. Through the window, I could see the oak tree the landlord had planted along the sidewalk, bare now in February, its branches thin against the gray sky. My husband had loved oak trees. He always said they took their time, but they got there in the end. $25,000. I said it out loud to the empty room just to hear what it sounded like. $25,000 had left my account, and I had not moved it. Someone had the account number. Someone had the routing number. Someone had my information on a single printed sheet of paper, sitting in a blue folder in a fireproof box in my daughter's house. I did not sleep that night. The next morning I made a list. I was my mother's daughter, and my mother had always said that you can only do one thing at a time, so you might as well do them in order. The list had 6 items. I worked through them one by one, slowly, the way you eat something you are not sure of, carefully, without rushing. First, I called my financial advisor, a man I had worked with for 9 years. I told him there had been unauthorized transactions. His voice changed immediately, became focused, careful, professional. He began the process of flagging the account. He told me to go into the branch in person, which I did that afternoon. The branch manager was a woman about 10 years younger than me, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner that I found extremely comforting. She sat across from me with a yellow notepad, and she asked me questions, and I answered them. She explained that the transfers had been initiated through online banking. Someone had logged in with my credentials. Had I ever shared my username or password with anyone? No, I said. Had anyone else had access to my account documents? And I told her about the folder, and about my daughter's house, and about the pause in the kitchen when I asked for it back. She did not say anything for a moment. Then she said, "We're going to take care of this." She helped me close the compromised account and open a new one. She helped me set up 2-factor authentication. She noted everything I told her. She gave me a printed summary of the fraudulent transactions and the case number for the investigation. I drove home with that paper on the passenger seat, and I thought about my daughter. Not the woman who had paused in the kitchen, the girl she had been before that, the one who used to bring me dandelions from the backyard like they were roses. The one who called me from college every Sunday without fail. The one who held my hand in the hospital when her father was dying and didn't let go for 3 hours. I thought about her and I felt something that wasn't anger exactly. It was heavier than anger. It was grief, wearing anger's coat. I still had 4 items left on the list. I called my attorney 2 days later. She was a woman I had found after my husband died, referred by a friend, and she had become over the years something closer to an advisor than a service. I told her what had happened. I told her about the folder and the account and the transfers and the branch manager. She listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I valued most about her. When I finished, she said, "You did exactly right coming to me now." She told me we needed to look at the trust document. I had named my daughter as the primary trustee. Given what I was describing, she said, we should consider revising that arrangement. Not because my daughter was necessarily the one who had taken the money. We did not know that for certain yet. But because the relationship had changed in a way that affected my security. I sat with that for a long moment. What would the new arrangement look like? I asked. She explained. I listened. I made notes on my yellow legal pad. By the end of the call, I had an appointment scheduled for the following week. On my way out of the apartment to that appointment, I stopped at the mailbox and found a letter from my insurance company. It was routine, an annual update, nothing unusual. But I stood there in the February cold holding it, and I thought about all the years I had trusted my own good judgment about people, and I wondered when I had stopped paying close enough attention. I was not a careless woman. I had worked as a nurse for 34 years. I had raised 2 daughters after my husband's first heart attack left him diminished. I had managed the finances and the household and the worry for decades. Quietly, without drama, because that was the job, and I believed in doing the job. But I had trusted too easily in the safety of love. That, I thought, was the thing I needed to stop doing. The attorney meeting went for 2 hours. We revised the trust. We named a professional fiduciary as the successor trustee, a small firm downtown that handled exactly this kind of thing. We added protections that should have been there from the beginning. My attorney did not hurry me, and she did not make me feel foolish, which I appreciated more than I told her. When I got home, I sat down and I wrote my daughter a letter. Not a text, not an email, a letter, handwritten, on the good cream-colored stationery I had bought years ago and rarely used. I did not write it in anger. I had been angry at 3 in the morning in the first days after the bank call. But by the time I wrote the letter, the anger had burned down to something cooler and more useful. I wrote clearly. I told her what I knew. I told her what the bank had found. I told her what I had done in response. I told her that I loved her and that I was her mother and that those two facts would not change regardless of what she had done or not done. And I told her that I needed the folder returned. I told her that if she had questions, she could call me. If she needed to talk, I was here. But that I would not be pretending this had not happened. That was not something I was willing to do. I mailed it on a Thursday, the same day I normally drove over for coffee. I did not drive over that Thursday. She called 4 days later. It was early in the morning, just past 7, and I was in the kitchen with my coffee watching the oak tree begin to bud, the season turning without asking anyone's permission, the way seasons do. Mom. Her voice was different from the kitchen voice, the easy daughter voice. It was smaller. I need to talk to you. I know, I said. What followed was long and it was hard, and there were silences in it that lasted long enough to be painful. She told me that her husband had found the account information in the folder, that he had accessed my account without telling her at first. That had been his claim to her, that when she found out, she had not told me because she was afraid, that the money had gone to cover a business debt she hadn't known about, money owed to people her husband had been afraid of, that she had been trying to figure out how to fix it without it reaching me, that she was sorry. I listened to all of it. I did not interrupt. I had learned, in 34 years of nursing, that sometimes people need to say the whole thing before they can hear anything back. When she finished, I said, I believe that you are telling me what you believe is true. She was quiet. But I am your mother, I said, and I have known you for 41 years, and you knew about that folder. You knew what was in it. And when I asked for it back, you didn't tell me any of this. You told me you'd look for it. Another silence. I was scared, she said. I know you were, I said. I'm scared too. I have been scared every day since I called the bank. She cried then, the way she used to cry when she was a small girl and had done something wrong. Not performing it, just undone by it. And I sat with the phone against my ear, and I looked at the oak tree, and I felt all of it at once, the love and the loss and the grief and the strange, exhausted relief of no longer pretending. The trust has been changed, I told her. The account is closed. The bank investigation is ongoing. I didn't do those things to punish you. I did them because I had to. She said she understood. The folder, I said. She brought it the next day. She left it on my doorstep in a paper grocery bag and drove away before I opened the door. I stood in the doorway and watched her car disappear around the corner. And then I looked inside the bag. The blue folder was there. Everything was in it as far as I could tell. The deed copy, the insurance papers, the Medicare information. The account number sheet had been torn out along one edge, carefully, like someone had tried to be neat about it. I noticed that. I noticed it, and I set it aside. I made fresh coffee, and I sat down at the table, and I opened the folder, and I went through every page slowly. Then I called my attorney and told her it had been returned. She noted it. There are things you do not get back. I have lived long enough to know that. My husband's voice. The particular shade of light in the house I sold. The version of my daughter I had before I knew what I knew. But there are also things you build after. That is the part people don't always talk about, the building part. How you go on and make decisions and keep your paperwork in order and change the locks not out of fear, but out of sense. How you choose, carefully and with clear eyes, who holds your trust and how much of it and in what form. My investment account is with a different institution now. My documents are in a safety deposit box at a branch 10 minutes from my apartment. My attorney has a copy of the trust. The fiduciary firm has been in touch. I still have coffee on Thursdays, but now I do it at a small place 2 blocks from my apartment with a friend from my former nursing unit who has her own long story that I will not tell for her. We sit by the window and we watch people go by and we talk about the kinds of things women our age talk about when we are not pretending. Which is to say, the real things, the hard things, the things that do not resolve neatly, but that you carry anyway because they are yours. My daughter and I speak on the phone, not every week. Not yet, but some weeks. It is careful and a little formal and nothing like it was before. I do not know what it will become. I have stopped trying to predict it. What I know is this. I am 67 years old and I spent most of my life taking care of other people with both hands, and I did not keep one for myself. I do not say that with bitterness. I say it because it is true, and because I think there are women who will hear it and recognize something in it, the way you recognize the wrong note in a song you know. Keep one hand for yourself, not in selfishness, not in fear, but in the plain, practical knowledge that you are worth protecting, that your name on a document matters, that your savings are not a resource for someone else's emergencies. That love, real love, does not require you to look away. The oak tree out my window has all its leaves now. It happened gradually, the way things do. A little more every morning until one day it was simply full. I notice it when I drink my coffee. I notice the light moving through it. My husband would have loved it. I water the plant on my windowsill, and I take my medications, and I call my attorney when I need to, and I drive with the windows down when the weather allows. That is enough. That is, I have found, quite a lot.